A homeless black boy saved a dying woman unaware. She's a billionaire. What she did next shocked every. People passed him quickly, some giving him curious looks, others turning away as if he were invisible. He had learned long ago not to expect kindness from strangers. He was used to being ignored, used to being alone, and used to the harsh world around him. But even though life had been cruel, he never lost a spark of hope, a tiny belief that maybe, one day, things could be different. He had learned to survive by being quiet, by keeping his head down, and by finding small ways to make life bearable. Some days he would scavenge for leftover food near restaurants or fast food places, thankful for every small scrap. Other days he would beg for change, and while most people ignored him, a few kind souls gave him coins or bread. Even so, it was never enough. He was always cold, always hungry, and always alone. Yet he had a heart that was bigger than his hardships. One evening, the sky was painted with orange and purple as the sun began to set. The streets were emptying as people rushed home to avoid the chill of the night. The boy, carrying a small, tattered backpack that contained all his belongings, walked along a quiet road near the edge of the city. His stomach was empty, his hands were numb from the cold, and his feet were sore from walking all day. He had begun to lose hope that anything good would ever happen in his life. Then he saw something that made him stop in his tracks. By the side of the road, partially hidden behind a tree, was a woman lying on the ground. She looked fragile and weak, barely able to move. Her hand was pressed against her chest as if she were in pain. At first, he hesitated. He had learned to be careful. People often pretended to need help just to take advantage of him, but something about her made him act differently. There was fear in her eyes, but there was also urgency. The boy quickly ran to her side. "Are you okay? Do you need help?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. The woman tried to speak but could only gasp for air. He realized immediately that she was in serious trouble. His heart pounded in his chest as panic mixed with determination. He knew he had to do something, even though he had no experience in emergencies, even though he was just a boy surviving on the streets. He looked around frantically, hoping someone else would help. Cars passed by, but no one stopped. Some people slowed down, curious, then drove away. He could feel frustration rising, but he forced himself to focus. "I can't just leave her here," he thought. "If I leave, she might die." The thought of someone dying when he could help was unbearable. He grabbed his backpack and ran to the nearest house. He knocked on the door with all his strength, hoping someone inside would answer. A man opened it, looking surprised and annoyed to see a dirty, shivering boy standing there. "Please," the boy pleaded. "A woman is hurt by the road. She needs help." The man hesitated, unsure what to do. The boy's urgency and fear must have convinced him because he finally nodded and called for an ambulance. Meanwhile, the boy ran back to the woman, talking to her gently, trying to keep her awake. "Help is coming, don't worry. Just hold on," he whispered. He held her hand, trying to give her comfort, even though his own hands were shaking. Every minute felt like an hour. Every breath she took seemed like a battle. He had never faced anything like this before, but he refused to leave her side. After what felt like an eternity, the ambulance arrived. Paramedics jumped out and began examining the woman. The boy watched closely, giving them details about what had happened. The paramedics were impressed by how calm he was, how focused he remained despite being so young and vulnerable himself. "You did the right thing," one of them said, giving him a small, reassuring smile. The woman was carefully lifted onto a stretcher and taken to the hospital. Before she lost consciousness, she tried to whisper something, but the boy could not hear her clearly. She looked at him with gratitude in her eyes. That brief moment, that silent look of thanks, stayed with him long after she was gone. He watched the ambulance disappear into the distance, not knowing who she was or how important she would turn out to be. After the ambulance left, the boy felt a mix of relief and emptiness. Relief that she was safe, but emptiness because life would go on as it always had for him. He walked back to the streets, colder and hungrier than before, but with a strange warmth in his chest. He had done something good. For the first time in a long while, he felt like he mattered. As he wandered the streets that night, memories of the woman's face stayed with him. He remembered the fear in her eyes and the faint smile she gave him. He wondered if she would ever know who had helped her. But the streets were unforgiving, and soon he had to focus on finding a place to sleep, somewhere safe from the cold wind and passing strangers. He found a small alley, curled up under a broken cardboard box, and tried to sleep. but sleep did not come easily. His mind was full of thoughts about the woman and the life he led. He thought about how unfair life could be, how some people had everything while others had nothing. Yet, despite all the pain and loneliness, he realized something important. Even when you have nothing, you can still make a difference. Even when the world ignores you, your actions can matter. That thought gave him a strange hope, a feeling he had not experienced in a long time. The next morning, the boy woke up to the sound of the city coming alive. The streets were filled with people rushing to work, school, and errands. He got up, rubbed his eyes, and adjusted his backpack. Life would continue as it always had. He would still face hunger, cold, and loneliness, but something inside him had changed. That night had shown him that even in his broken world, he could be a hero, even if only for a moment. As he walked through the crowded streets, he noticed small details he had never seen before. The kindness of strangers, the beauty of the sunrise, the tiny joys hidden in the city's chaos. For the first time, he felt a connection to the world around him. And though he did not know it yet, his life was about to change in ways he could never imagine. That evening, he returned to the alley where he had slept before. He looked at the stars, thinking about the woman he had saved. He did not know who she was, nor did he expect anything in return. But he knew one thing. He had done the right thing, and that made him feel stronger than he had ever felt before. He closed his eyes, listening to the sounds of the city, the distant honk of a car, the laughter of children playing, the quiet hum of life continuing around him. And for the first time in a long time, he slept peacefully, dreaming of a world where kindness mattered more than wealth, where actions spoke louder than appearances, and where even a homeless boy could be a hero. Little did he know, the woman he saved was not an ordinary person. She was someone powerful, someone who could change the course of his life forever. But that was a story for another day, a story that would reveal that one small act of courage could have consequences far beyond what he could ever imagine. And so the boy continued his life on the streets, unaware that the simple decision to stop and help someone in need was about to bring him into a world he had only ever dreamed of, a world filled with hope, opportunity, and the chance to prove that even the most overlooked people can change the lives of others in ways that no one could foresee. The woman was rushed to the hospital in the ambulance. Every second counted, and the paramedics worked quickly to stabilize her. She was weak, barely able to speak, and her breathing was shallow. The boy had disappeared back into the streets, but his actions had already saved her life. The hospital staff later said that without his quick thinking and immediate response, she might not have survived. He had acted without hesitation, without fear, and without thinking about himself, and that courage made all the difference. Inside the hospital room, the woman slowly regained consciousness. The white walls, the beeping machines, and the sterile smell of antiseptic surrounded her. She was frightened at first, unsure where she was or what had happened. Then her memories returned, the sudden collapse, the panic, the fear that she might not make it. And then she remembered the boy who had stopped when everyone else had ignored her, who had helped her despite being so young and so vulnerable himself. Her heart filled with gratitude, but also curiosity. Who was this boy? Where had he come from? The nurses and doctors told her the boy had run off before they could even thank him properly. She asked questions, trying to piece together what had happened, but no one seemed to know much about him. All they knew was that a young homeless boy had seen her collapse and had immediately gone to find help. The woman was determined. She wanted to find him. She could not rest until she had met the person who had saved her life. Meanwhile, the boy had returned to his usual routine on the streets. He scavenged for food, tried to stay warm, and avoided trouble. But something inside him had changed. He kept thinking about the woman, the fear in her eyes, and the relief when she saw him. For the first time in a long while, he realized that his actions could matter. He could make a difference in the world, even if no one noticed. That thought gave him a strange kind of strength, a feeling that maybe life was not as hopeless as it had seemed. Days passed. The boy continued to live on the streets, barely scraping by, while the woman's health improved in the hospital. She regained her strength, but she could not shake the image of the boy's worried face and his small hands holding hers as he tried to keep her alive. She asked the hospital staff to help her find him, providing every detail she could remember, the location where she had collapsed, the time of day, the description of his clothes, and even the backpack he had carried. The hospital staff were amazed at her determination. They began contacting local authorities, checking security cameras and speaking to witnesses who had been nearby that day. The boy, unaware of the search for him, was having his own struggles. The streets were cold, the food was scarce, and the nights were lonely. But he carried a quiet pride. He had saved someone's life. Even if he never knew who she was or what she thought of him, he had done the right thing. That was enough. Still deep down, he wondered if anyone would ever notice, if anyone would ever care about him beyond his appearance as a homeless boy. The woman's search continued. Her resources were vast. She could afford anything, hire anyone, and use any technology available to find him. She reviewed security camera footage from nearby streets, spoke to local businesses, and even offered rewards for information. Slowly, piece by piece, the boy's location began to emerge. She learned where he often stayed, where he scavenged for food, and even where he slept at night. Each detail made her more determined. She wanted to meet him, not just to thank him, but to understand the courage and kindness that had saved her life. Meanwhile, the boy continued to navigate the city streets. He had grown used to avoiding trouble, but that evening, he noticed a small crowd gathered near the hospital. Curious, he approached, trying to see what was happening. From a distance, he overheard people talking about a young boy who had saved a woman's life. He froze, unable to believe his ears. Could they be talking about him? His heart raced. Could it be that someone had noticed what he had done, that someone cared enough to look for him? The woman finally arranged to meet him. She wanted it to be private, not a public spectacle. She did not want to overwhelm him or scare him with her wealth and status. She wanted him to know that she was genuinely grateful, and that his actions had changed her life in ways words could barely express. The search team tracked him to a quiet alley where he often slept, a place hidden from the busy streets and the watchful eyes of strangers. When the woman arrived, the boy did not recognize her at first. He saw a well-dressed woman, confident and powerful, approaching him with a warm smile. She knelt down to his level, her eyes kind and gentle, and spoke softly. "You saved my life," she said. The boy was stunned. He could not believe that someone like her was talking to him, that someone cared enough to find him. He stumbled over his words, trying to explain, trying to say that he had only done what anyone should do, but she interrupted him with a gentle shake of her head. "You did more than anyone could expect," she said. "You acted when others ignored me. You cared when others walked away. That courage, that kindness, it is rare. I will never forget it." The boy felt a mixture of pride and disbelief. For the first time, someone had recognized him, not for his clothes or his situation, but for his heart. It was overwhelming. The woman asked him to come with her to meet properly and to allow her to show her gratitude. The boy hesitated. He was not used to trust, not used to kindness, and certainly not used to people offering him anything without expectation. But something about her sincerity convinced him. He nodded slowly, and together they walked to the hospital. At the hospital, the woman introduced him to doctors and staff who had treated her. They praised him, thanked him, and told him how brave he had been. He was embarrassed by the attention, unsure how to respond, but he could feel a warmth spreading inside him. He realized that his life, which had been so small and unnoticed, had suddenly become important. He had made a real difference, and people were noticing. Over the next few days, the woman spent time with him, learning about his life on the streets. She listened to his stories, his struggles, and his dreams. She learned that he had no family, no home, and very little hope for the future. Yet she also saw his strength, his determination, and the kindness that had led him to save her life without thinking twice. She knew she could not simply thank him with words. She wanted to do more. She began making plans to help him. She thought carefully, knowing that sudden wealth or attention could overwhelm him. She wanted to give him stability, education, and opportunity without taking away his dignity. She also wanted to inspire him to continue being kind, to continue making a difference in the world, no matter what his circumstances had been. The boy, meanwhile, was beginning to feel something he had not felt in a long time: hope. For the first time, he imagined a life where he did not have to struggle every day to survive, where he could dream bigger than just finding food and shelter. He began to think about going to school again, learning new things, and perhaps even helping others as he had helped the woman. The possibility of a different life filled him with excitement and determination. The bond between them grew stronger. The woman treated him with respect, listened to his ideas, and encouraged him to be himself. She never made him feel small or unworthy. Instead, she showed him that his actions, his courage, and his kindness were valuable beyond measure. The boy began to trust her, and for the first time in his life, he felt that someone truly cared about him, not because of who he was, but because of who he had shown himself to be. Little by little, plans were made to help the boy transition from the streets to a life with opportunity and stability. The woman knew it would take time, patience, and care. She wanted him to feel safe, to feel loved, and to feel capable of achieving great things. And though he did not know it yet, this single act of courage, stopping to help a stranger, had set in motion a chain of events that would change his life forever. And so, the boy who had once wandered the streets alone began a new chapter in his life. He had saved a life, but in doing so, he had also begun to save his own. The woman's gratitude, determination, and kindness were the first steps toward a future he had never dared to imagine, a future filled with hope, opportunity, and the knowledge that even the smallest actions could have the greatest impact. The woman could not stop thinking about the boy. Every moment in the hospital, every quiet night, every decision she made seemed connected to him. She had always lived a life surrounded by wealth, luxury, and power, but nothing she had experienced compared to the courage and kindness of this small, homeless boy who had saved her life. She realized that she could not just let this moment pass. She had to find him, not only to thank him properly, but also to ensure that his life would be different from that moment forward. Her team worked tirelessly. They reviewed security cameras, spoke with witnesses, and retraced the boy's steps from the day he had saved her. Slowly, they pieced together his life, a story of survival, struggle, and resilience that few could imagine. He had no family, no home, and no support system, yet he had acted with bravery and selflessness that few adults could match. The more she learned about him, the more determined she became. She had to meet him face to face, and she had to ensure that the world recognized the importance of his actions. Meanwhile, the boy remained unaware of the search. He continued his daily life on the streets, moving from one place to another, trying to find food and shelter. He had begun to feel a small spark of hope after helping the woman, but the world was still harsh, and his survival depended on his ability to stay alert, to stay cautious, and to stay strong. He had not yet realized that his simple act of kindness had changed his own fate in ways he could never imagine. One afternoon, as he wandered near the edge of the city, he noticed something unusual. A black car had stopped, and people in neat uniforms were walking around, asking questions and looking carefully at the area. At first, the boy was curious, but then he felt a twinge of fear. He had learned to be wary of strangers, especially those who seemed interested in him. He kept his distance, watching from behind a corner, unsure what was happening. A few days later, more clues began to reach him indirectly. Someone he had once shared food with mentioned a woman looking for him. At first, he thought it was a joke. But the more he listened, the more he realized that something serious was going on. Someone powerful, someone important was trying to find him. He could not understand why. He had done nothing remarkable, at least in his own eyes. And yet, slowly, he began to feel a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Who was this person, and why were they looking for him? The woman's determination only grew stronger. She reviewed footage of the streets, identified the boy's usual spots, and asked her team to track him carefully. She wanted to make sure that when she finally met him, he would be safe, comfortable, and respected. She did not want to frighten him with her wealth or her status. She simply wanted him to understand that he had changed her life and that she wanted to help him in any way she could. Finally, the moment came. Her team located the boy sleeping under a bridge, a place he had often returned to after long days searching for food and shelter. He was unaware that someone so important was nearby, planning to meet him. When the woman approached, dressed in simple clothes to avoid intimidating him, the boy looked up and froze. For a moment, he could not speak. He had never seen anyone like her so close, someone who clearly cared about him, someone who had gone to great lengths to find him. The woman knelt down to his level and spoke softly. "You saved my life," she said. The boy blinked, unsure what to say. He had only acted out of instinct, out of concern for another human being, yet here was someone expressing gratitude in a way he had never experienced before. "I wanted to find you," she continued. "I wanted to meet the person who showed me such kindness when everyone else ignored me. You are special, and I want you to know that your actions matter." The boy's heart raced. He had never felt such attention or care. For so long, the world had ignored him, treated him as invisible, or judged him for his appearance and circumstances. And now someone, not just anyone, but someone who could command wealth, power, and influence, was telling him that his life, his actions, and his courage mattered. He felt a mix of pride, disbelief, and hope. She asked him to come with her to spend some time at the hospital and to meet properly. The boy hesitated. He was not used to trust, not used to kindness, and certainly not used to being offered anything without strings attached. But there was something in her eyes, something genuine and sincere, that convinced him. Slowly, cautiously, he nodded. For the first time, he allowed himself to step into a world that had always seemed unreachable. At the hospital, the boy saw a side of life he had never experienced before. Doctors, nurses, and staff greeted him warmly, praising him for his bravery. He was embarrassed by the attention, unsure how to respond, but he could feel a warmth spreading inside him. He realized that for the first time he was recognized not for his poverty, his clothing, or his situation, but for his heart, his courage, and his selflessness. The woman shared her story with him, explaining how he had saved her life and how grateful she was. She told him that his quick thinking, bravery, and willingness to help had made a difference that could never be measured. The boy listened quietly, still unsure how to process the attention, but a small smile began to form. For the first time, he felt pride, felt that he truly mattered, and that his actions had value beyond what he had ever imagined. Over the next few days, the woman spent time with him, learning about his life on the streets. She listened to his stories, his struggles, and his dreams. She discovered that he had no family, no home, and very little hope for the future. Yet she also saw his strength, his determination, and the kindness that had led him to save her life without thinking twice. She realized that she could not simply thank him with words. She wanted to change his life, to provide him with opportunities he had never dreamed of. The boy began to open up slowly but surely. He shared memories of his life, both painful and hopeful, and she listened without judgment. He realized that she was not just a person with wealth and power, but someone who truly cared about him as a person. That realization filled him with a sense of safety he had never known. For the first time in his life, he felt understood, respected, and valued. Plans began to take shape. The woman wanted to help him transition from the streets to a life with stability, education, and opportunities. She knew that this change could not happen overnight. She wanted to ensure that he felt comfortable, safe, and respected throughout the process. She also wanted him to retain his dignity and independence while giving him the support he needed to succeed. As the days passed, the boy began to feel something he had never felt before: hope. He imagined a life where he did not have to worry about food, shelter, or safety every day. He began to dream about learning, growing, and achieving things he had never thought possible. The thought that his life could change so dramatically because of one act of kindness amazed him. He realized that even small actions, small decisions, could have enormous consequences. The bond between them grew stronger. The woman treated him with respect, listened to his ideas, and encouraged him to pursue his dreams. She never made him feel small or unworthy. Instead, she showed him that his actions, his courage, and his heart had value beyond measure. The boy began to trust her completely, and for the first time he felt that someone genuinely cared about him, not because of what he could offer, but because of who he was. Slowly, the boy's life began to change. He started attending school again, learning things he had missed while surviving on the streets. He received proper clothing, nutrition, and medical care. More importantly, he received something he had never experienced before: stability, security, and unconditional support. The woman's actions demonstrated that one person's kindness could ripple outward, transforming not only one life but potentially many. And as the boy adjusted to this new life, he began to realize the full impact of what had happened. He had saved a life, and in doing so, he had saved himself. His courage, compassion, and determination had set in motion a series of events that would change his future forever. And though he did not yet know everything the woman planned for him, he felt certain that his life would never be the same. This moment, this connection, and this act of gratitude marked a turning point. The boy had stepped out of the shadows of the streets and into a world of possibilities. And while challenges would still come, he now had the tools, support, and encouragement to face them. His story was no longer one of survival alone, but of transformation, hope, and the power of human kindness. The boy's life had already begun to change in ways he had never imagined. He had food to eat, a safe place to sleep, and people who genuinely cared about him. Yet the woman knew that these small comforts were only the beginning. She wanted to do something bigger, something that would not only help him but also give him purpose and hope for the future. She wanted to show him that the world could be different, that kindness, courage, and compassion could open doors that once seemed impossible to reach. Over the next few days, the woman spent more time with the boy. She listened to his stories of life on the streets, of struggles, hardships, and moments of hope that had kept him going. She learned about the nights he had gone without food, the days he had walked miles searching for scraps, and the loneliness that had been his constant companion. And yet, despite everything, she also saw the strength, resilience, and determination that had allowed him to survive. She knew that this boy was special, that his heart was pure, and that he had the potential to accomplish incredible things if given the chance. The boy, meanwhile, was slowly beginning to adjust to his new life. At first, it was strange for him to have people waiting for him, worrying about his safety and encouraging him to pursue education and skills. He had been alone for so long that the sudden attention felt overwhelming. Yet, over time, he began to understand that this was not pity or charity, it was genuine care. The woman treated him as an equal, respected his thoughts, and encouraged him to make decisions about his own life. Slowly, he began to trust her completely, opening his heart to the possibility of a future he had never dared to imagine. One day, the woman sat down with him and asked, "What do you want from life?" The boy thought for a moment. He had never really considered such a question before. Survival had been his only focus, and dreams had been a luxury he could not afford. Yet now, for the first time, he could imagine possibilities. He spoke about wanting to learn, to help others, and to one day ensure that no child would have to suffer like he had. The woman smiled, knowing that his dreams were pure and ambitious. She decided then that she would do everything in her power to make them possible. She began by enrolling him in school, providing tutors to help him catch up on years of missed education. She introduced him to mentors who could guide him, teach him skills, and inspire him to aim high. Slowly, the boy began to excel. His natural intelligence, curiosity, and determination shone through. Teachers and mentors were amazed at his dedication, his willingness to learn, and his resilience. Even though he had faced tremendous hardships, he had never lost the ability to hope, to dream, and to strive for something better. At the same time, the woman worked behind the scenes to ensure his life would be comfortable and secure. She arranged for a proper home where he could feel safe, provided clothes and supplies he had never had before, and ensured that he had access to everything he needed for his education and well-being. But she also emphasized the importance of humility, gratitude, and giving back. She wanted him to remember where he had come from and to use his experiences to help others who were struggling. The boy quickly understood the magnitude of what had happened. He had gone from surviving on the streets to being given opportunities that many could only dream of. Yet he never forgot the lessons he had learned on the streets, the importance of courage, compassion, and selflessness. He realized that his life had a new purpose, to help others, to make a difference, and to ensure that no act of kindness, no matter how small, ever went unnoticed. The woman, seeing his potential and determination, decided to take an even bigger step. She wanted to create a foundation in his name, a program dedicated to helping homeless children find hope, education, and stability. She believed that his story could inspire thousands, showing that even those who start with nothing can achieve greatness and touch the lives of many others. The boy was amazed when he heard her idea. He had never imagined that his simple act of kindness, helping a stranger, could grow into something so meaningful. The foundation was established with the boy as its inspiration. Programs were created to provide food, shelter, education, and mentorship for children living on the streets. Volunteers and educators joined the effort, eager to help transform lives just as the boy's life had been transformed. The boy became actively involved, sharing his story, motivating others, and helping to guide the programs. He found purpose in helping those who had been overlooked, ignored, and forgotten, just as he had once been. Word of the boy's story spread quickly. Media outlets, social media, and news organizations covered the remarkable tale of courage, compassion, and transformation. People were amazed that a homeless child had saved the life of a billionaire, and even more inspired that the billionaire had used her resources to change the boy's life completely. The story resonated with millions, highlighting the power of kindness and the importance of recognizing the humanity in everyone, regardless of their circumstances. Despite all the attention and opportunities, the boy remained humble. He never forgot the streets where he had lived, the hunger he had felt, or the fear that had once been his constant companion. Those experiences shaped him, giving him empathy, wisdom, and a unique perspective that few could understand. He worked tirelessly, determined to ensure that no child would ever feel invisible, ignored, or hopeless again. The woman watched with pride as the boy grew into a confident, compassionate, and determined young man. She knew that she had not just saved him physically, but had also helped unlock his potential, allowing him to thrive in a way that no one could have imagined. The boy's journey was a testament to the idea that courage and kindness, even in the smallest acts, could create ripples that changed lives forever. As the foundation expanded, the boy became a symbol of hope for countless children living in difficult circumstances. His story reminded people that no act of kindness is ever wasted, and that even in the darkest moments, courage and compassion can lead to incredible transformations. He spoke at events, met with children, and shared his journey, inspiring others to believe in the power of humanity and the possibility of change. Over time, the boy also began to dream of the future in ways he had never imagined. He wanted to pursue education, build a career, and continue helping others. The woman supported him every step of the way, providing guidance, mentorship, and resources. She reminded him that the world was full of possibilities and that his past did not define his future. With her support and his determination, he embraced every opportunity, determined to make a lasting impact. One day, as he reflected on his journey, the boy realized how far he had come. From a cold, hungry child wandering the streets to a young man with purpose, support, and hope, his life had transformed completely. Yet he knew that the true magic of his story lay not in the material comforts he had received, but in the lessons of courage, kindness, and selflessness that had carried him through the darkest moments. The woman's final act of generosity, creating the foundation, supporting his education, and inspiring a movement of kindness, ensured that the boy's story would live on, touching countless lives for generations to come. He had saved a life, and in doing so, his life had been saved in ways far greater than he could have imagined. He had gone from being invisible to being a source of hope, proving that even the smallest acts of courage could create a world of change. As he looked back on his journey, the boy understood a simple truth. Kindness has no limits, courage has no boundaries, and hope can always be found, even in the darkest circumstances. His life, once full of struggle and despair, had been rewritten by one small act of bravery and the compassion of someone who believed in him. And now he was ready to continue that legacy, changing lives, inspiring hope, and showing the world that even those who start with nothing can achieve greatness. The boy's story, from the streets to a life of purpose and inspiration, became a symbol of hope. It reminded people everywhere that acts of kindness matter, that courage can change destinies, and that no one is ever too small or too powerless to make a difference. The world watched, inspired by his journey, as he continued to grow, help others, and live a life filled with meaning, proving that a single act of goodness can ripple outward, touching lives far beyond what anyone could imagine. And so, the boy who had once been homeless, alone, and overlooked, became a beacon of hope for children everywhere. His life, forever changed by a single moment of courage and the generosity of a grateful woman, was now a testament to the power of kindness, compassion, and the extraordinary potential that exists within every human heart.